Find the areas of the figures for parts A and B below. So here is part A. We got that shape. It's looks like it's a parallelogram. And so what is the area of a parallelogram? Parallelogram is basically a rectangle that's been shifted. You know what I mean? So we could go like straight up, straight over, straight down, and straight over. Whoops, that didn't work out so well. My drawing was far too shaky. There we go. So that's the same thing, right? It's like that rectangle, but it's just been shifted. So that's all a parallelogram is a rectangle that's been shifted. So the area, so think of it like a rectangle. And a rectangle is just one side times the other, the bottom times the side, right? So that's how a parallelogram is. It's area of the base times the area of the height. It's just one side times the other because it's basically like a rectangle that's been shifted. Okay, so what's the base? Well, here's the base down here. The base is going to be, you know, from right there to right there. From there to there. So there's the base, which is clearly 20. So we've got the base, and now we need the height. Now where's the height? Is the 5 the height? No, that's going diagonally down. Same thing over here. Those are not the height. Height has to go straight down to base. So this is the height right there, isn't it? So that's clearly the height. So I don't know the height. I'm going to have to find the height. So how do I find that height? Well, do you see that this right here is a right triangle, isn't it? Has a little right angle there. So that's a right triangle. And anytime you have a right triangle, you can do a squared plus b squared is c squared. Which one's c? C is always the one across from the right angle. This is c. So the c must be 5. And the other two are a and b. It doesn't matter which is which. The 3 and then the height. So I'll say 3 squared plus height squared is 5 squared. So I can solve this for height. And once I get the height, I'll plug it in back here and finish the problem. So, whoops, I didn't do anything new there. Let's try this again. So 3 squared is 9 and 5 squared is 25. Let's subtract 9 from both sides. And the 9's cancel. And so height squared is 16. And then we root it. And so the height is 4. So bring that back here. The height is 4. So finishing up this problem, base times height is 80. So the area is 80, and that's got to be square units, so that's square feet, right? Because area, we're always saying how many squares fill up the area. So 80 square feet. Let's go down to part B now. So here's part B. They're asking us for the area of that triangle. Well, we know the area of a triangle formula. Area of a triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height. So 1/2 base times height. So what's the base? The base is clearly, down here. The base goes all the way to there, all the way to there, there to there. That's the base. And the height, as you know, has to go straight down to the base. So that's the height. So 1/2 the base times the height. So we know the height. The height is clearly 60. What we don't know, put the height there, the height is clearly 60, but what we don't know is the base. What's the base? We don't know. So how are we going to find the base? Well, again, do you notice that part of it is a right triangle? Not all of it. But if I look just right here at this part, that part, half of it, is a right triangle, right? Right angle here. You could have done the left half or the right half. It doesn't matter. The entire triangle, like this whole thing, that's not a right triangle, is it? The whole thing does not have a 90-degree angle, does it? Right? You track with me. This angle's not 90. This angle's not 90. That angle's not 90. The whole triangle is not a right triangle, so we can't do that. But the right side, just the right side, is a right triangle, or I could have done the left side. It doesn't matter, either one. Those are right triangles. So I can use the Pythagorean Theorem. A squared plus b squared is c squared whenever we have a right triangle. Which one is c? C is always the one across from the right angle. This must be c. So the c is the 70. The a and the b are the other two. It doesn't really matter. Now, why don't I call this one x? Notice x, though, is half of the base, isn't it? X just goes from here to there. Whoops, doesn't it? So x is half the base. So after we get x, we're going to have to double it to have the whole base, and then we'll bring it back here and plug it in for the base. All right, let's do it. So we got the c is 70 squared, and the a squared, 60 squared plus x squared. So taking this side squared plus this side squared is that side squared. So 60 squared, 3,600 plus x squared is 4,900. Subtract 3,600 from both sides, and we get x squared is 1,300, root it. So now we got a square root 1,300. That's not easy to do. Let's break down that 1,300. That's 13 times 100, right? Those two zeros at the back. 100 is 10 times 10. I'm going to stop right there. You don't need to break down those 10s because you got two of them. As soon as you've got two of something, you're good to go. Because that's what square roots do, right? They're a 2-for-1 deal. So this is going to be the square root of 13 times 10 times 10. And remember how this works? 2-for-1 deal. So 2 10s in, sends 1 10 out, and they're gone. You could have broke it down, further, 2 5 2 5, and that would have worked as well. But why bother? As soon as we see two of anything, just ship it out right then, because that's easier. So we get 10. What's left inside? Just the 13. So x is 10 root 13. That's x. 10 root 13. But that's only half the base. What's the base? 2 times 10 root 13, right? The base is twice x. In other words, 20 root 13. Do you see that? So the x up there is 10 root 13, but that's half the base. So the base, the whole base of the whole shaded triangle, is double that. Double 10 root 13 is 20 root 13. That's the base. So now we grab that base and we bring it right there. Plug it in. 20 root 13. So we can find the area of the triangle now. We have a half times 20 root 13 times 60. So on your calculator, go ahead and multiply a half times 20. You know half of 20, 10 times 60. Multiply all the numbers that are outside of the roots, and you'll get 600, and then we just leave the root 13. A half times 20. A half times 20 times 60 is 600, and the root 13 is just staying there. And so there is our answer, 600 root 13. So we put that in up here, 600 root 13. What are the units there? Well, that is square feet, because area, we're saying how many actual squares fill up that triangle. 600 root 13 square feet.